Magnus the Red broke the Emperor's laws, but he did it to save the Imperium. He saw what others could not, the corruption of the War Master, the creeping shadow of chaos bleeding into the hearts of mankind's greatest warriors. And so he acted. He cast a warning through the warp itself, a plea to his father, the Emperor of mankind, to stop the coming storm. But the warp does not carry messages cleanly. It twists, it corrupts, it breaks. What reached Terra was not a cry for help, but a hammer blow to the foundations of the Emperor's great work. In that moment, the fate of the 1,000 Suns was sealed. For his efforts, Magnus was branded a traitor. His legion was marked for destruction, and his home, the shining city of Prospero, was burned to ash. This is not a story of heresy. It is a story of blindness, of arrogance, of betrayal, of fire, and of the death of a legion. This is the fall of Prospero. In the early days of the Great Crusade, while other legions waged brutal war across the stars, the 1,000 Suns sought understanding. They were not weak, far from it. They were brilliant, devoted, fierce when provoked, but what set them apart was their mind. Their gene seed produced not only warriors, but psychers, an entire legion steeped in sorcery and intellect. They catalogued alien languages, studied ancient ruins, created great librariums filled with forbidden knowledge reclaimed from lost human worlds. Other legions mocked them, called them witches. But they were blind to what the 1,000 Suns truly represented: evolution. Yet for all their brilliance, a curse lingered in their blood: the flesh change. A genetic corruption that transformed battle brothers into hulking abominations, twisted masses of flesh, bone, and psychic fury. Imagine watching your closest brother scream in agony as his body betrays him. His mind dissolves, his form collapses, until all that remains is a monster. It happened often, too often. Entire squads would vanish into silence, their names struck from the Legion's records. The Emperor knew, and still he let them fight. When the burden became too great, when too many of his sons were lost, Magnus acted. He turned to the only force that could offer hope: the warp. It was not a decision taken lightly. He meditated in isolation for weeks, consulted ancient texts, some written in blood, some burned into metal, and in the end something answered. A voice that offered salvation. It named itself change. It named itself knowledge. It named itself Tzeentch. The flesh change stopped, the legion stabilized. But in saving his sons, Magnus unknowingly forged a new chain around their necks. They would never be the same again. Not to the Imperium, not to their brothers, and not to the Emperor. Magnus saw the shadow before anyone else, in visions, in the threads of fate, in the silent scream of the Immaterium. He saw it. Horus Lupercal, the Emperor's favored son, had turned. At first, Magnus didn't believe it. He scoured the warp for other explanations, but the visions only grew clearer. Blood, fire, Astartes murdering Astartes, worlds burning in the name of a new dark god. And at the heart of it, Horus, his eyes full of hate, crowned in ruin. Magnus had to act. He had to warn the Emperor. But he could not simply send a message. The warp was dangerous. The Emperor had forbidden it. Yet what choice did he have? He gathered his sorcerers, constructed a ritual that spanned an entire city block of marble and gold, chanted words older than Terra itself. And then he tore a hole in reality and hurled his mind across the galaxy. What he found was not only the Emperor, but the Golden Throne, a hidden project, a webway tunnel between worlds, the final safeguard for mankind, a future free of demons, of warp storms, of damnation. And Magnus broke it, not out of malice, but because he was too strong, too desperate. The psychic blast shattered wards woven by the Emperor's own hands. Demons flooded in. The project was ruined. The Emperor, already burdened by the construction of the throne, was forced into silence to contain the breach. The warning had arrived, but so had disaster. In trying to save the future, Magnus had helped doom it. The Emperor did not respond in fury. At first, he issued a command to Leman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves: bring Magnus to Terra, alive. Russ and Magnus were opposites in all things. Where Magnus spoke in philosophy, Russ spoke in war. Where Magnus studied, Russ hunted, yet there had been respect, of a kind. But the message never reached Russ as intended. Horus, now corrupted by the dark gods, intercepted the order. He twisted it, whispered lies, said the Emperor wanted Magnus dead, not arrested, and Russ obeyed. He gathered his fleet, summoned the rout. Longships howled into the void. Rune-etched blades were anointed with blood. The warriors of Fenris were coming, not for judgment, but for execution. The spear of Russ turned toward Prospero, and not even the Emperor could call them back in time. The city of Tisga, capital of Prospero, shone like crystal under a red sky. Its pyramids were carved from marble, trimmed with gold and starlight, libraries taller than fortresses, statues that sang psalms of knowledge. And then, the sky fell. The wolves came in silence. No declaration, no terms. The first blasts came from orbit, cyclonic torpedoes reducing entire districts to rubble. Drop pods rained like meteors. Fenrisian dreadnoughts slammed into streets built to honor peace. The Thousand Sons fought back, but they were not prepared. They were thinkers, not fortress keepers. Still, they fought. Psychers lit the sky with flame. Thought became weapon, but the wolves came in waves. Fenrisian axe met prospering spell. Wolves howled through alleys as civilians fled screaming. Astartes died in the thousands. Tisga burned. At the heart of the storm stood Magnus, watching it all. For hours, he did not fight. He still believed, somewhere, that his father would stop this, that justice would prevail. But when he saw the wolves destroy his libraries, murder scholars in the streets, something broke. Magnus descended from his tower. He met Russ in battle, brother against brother, a duel not of honor, but of heartbreak. They tore the earth apart with every blow. In the end, Russ drove his spear through Magnus's chest, shattered his spine, broke his body, and Magnus, filled with rage and grief, let go of his humanity. He disappeared into the warp, wounded, betrayed, broken. The survivors of the Thousand Sons fled through the Imperium, guided by the whispers of Tzeentch. They found a world, a twisted, shimmering mirror of Prospero. It would become their new home, the planet of the sorcerers. But peace did not last. Without Magnus's guiding hand, the flesh change returned. Worse than before, Ahriman, first captain, could not watch the Legion die again. So he acted. In secret, he gathered the strongest psychers. He crafted a spell, the Rubric, that would end the mutations once and for all. The ritual was vast. It cracked the skies, and it worked. The mutations stopped. But the price? Thousands of battle brothers were turned to dust, their souls trapped inside their power armor, silent, empty, forever. The Rubricae were born, warriors without will, without voice, a legion of ghosts. Magnus was horrified. In fury, he cast Ahriman out, banished him to wander the galaxy, cursed and alone. The legion had survived, but it had lost its soul. Prospero was gone. The Thousand Sons were shattered, and the Imperium had won. But what had it gained? The fall of Prospero was not just a war. It was a murder. The Imperium feared knowledge, feared change, feared anything it could not dominate. Magnus had not betrayed the Emperor. He had trusted him, even after being censured at Nicaea, even after the Librarius was dissolved, even after the warning went unheeded. Still, he believed. But belief means nothing in the Imperium. Only obedience matters. The Thousand Sons were not corrupted. They were cornered. And when you corner a sorcerer, you awaken something worse than heresy. You create revenge. The fall of Prospero was the death of a legion, but it was also the moment the Imperium betrayed its own soul. Magnus, the Red Cyclops, the Crimson King, had once believed in humanity's future. Ahriman had once believed in order, in logic, in knowledge. Now they are both legends, whispered in fear, cursed by name. Their warriors walk in silence, their souls sealed behind gilded masks. They seek no forgiveness, they offer no apology. They remember, and in the ashes of Tisga the echo of fire still burns. I am heretical grey, and this is just one of the many tragedies buried in the ashes of the 41st millennium. Glory to the lost, and silence to the righteous.